Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the Online Business Launchpad podcast. I'm really delighted to have Sam Hurley with me today. Now, Sam is one of the founders of Marketing Entourage, whose focus is helping entrepreneurs grow their marketing skills for their business. So, I first came across Marketing Entourage when I was at the Hub, which is a shared office space in Melbourne, and I got to know Sam's business partner, Phil, right there when I was there at the Hub. And then years later, when I needed some help with my marketing, I reached out to them. And the thing that I really liked about working with Sam is that she's not all about sell, sell, sell. And that's in terms of marketing. You know, she's all about helping people learn the things that they need to learn so that they can market their business as well. So it's really all about skill mastery, which I think is great. And it's a really important critical thing is getting mastery of the skills that you need to make your business grow. So I'm really excited to have you here, Sam.
Hi, Judy. Thanks for having me.
So Sam, tell our listeners a little bit about who you serve and why you do what you do.
Well, we serve the entrepreneurial community, so that whether that's small business owner or a startup founder, or even a small to medium-sized enterprise in a traditional business. One of the reasons we started was because myself and my business partner Phil had been in agency environments and always felt like the client wasn't really considered in the process, and also there wasn't really sort of a clear valuable outcome for their customers at the end, and we wanted to change that. We wanted to really change the way people thought about their customers, to create customer-centered thinking, so that whatever you were doing, whether that was building a website or developing a product, was all about bringing value to the end user, the customer. And the other thing that we really wanted to do was just demystify marketing. And I worked in sales and marketing for over 20 years, which shows my age. But the changes that we've seen in this, in this sort of industry or this role has been immense because of the increase in digital platforms and the way we collect data and understand people. And so it can be quite overwhelming for those that have never encountered some of these aspects before, like SEO. What does SEO stand for? And so there's a lot of people out there that are using this sort of veil of mystery to try and I think take advantage of people that are trying to do well and trying to do good, but are necessarily spending money with an agency because they don't understand it and then not getting the return. And so that gives marketing a bad name as well. But it also means that that these business owners, startup founders, who have these limited resources are really, sort of not spending the return, not spending well to get the return for what they're investing in. And so Marketing Entourage was born. We wanted to first of all, educate people about marketing, what it is, demystify it, but also then teach people to think more strategically about it so that they understood why someone would do something. Or if they did engage an agency, they understood what that agency was going to do, and they could question it so that they got better results for their business.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I know that one of the sessions that you and I had was super valuable to me because the process that you walked me through, and my team, I had some of my team there with me, helped me realize that we had a huge, big, gaping hole in our marketing outreach. And as soon as we realized that, then we could do something about it. And it's taking that strategic approach and looking at it in a holistic way and going, what are you doing? How are you doing it? How are people finding out about you? That's actually really, really important. So no, I think that's really good. And I think, it's as you said, we're in really interesting times. And so you've talked about, why you've set up the business that you've set up and who you like to help and work with. So what are you doing specifically right now to sort of help those other businesses survive?
Yeah, so well, we do a number of things, and I suppose in our services we have three things that we do. We have a do-it-yourself, so we have a lot of free content, free education, and really that's for people that just want to explore or understand marketing to a certain degree. And I think, as you say in the session, Trudy, it's all about helping you realise. And so often when you went to an agency, the agency was they were the most informed. They knew what they were doing. But actually, we want to work with our customers, our clients, so that they understand they're part of this process and they take this process on board and they can replicate it again and again. We're teaching them the frameworks or the process so they can continue to implement this. So we do it yourself, we give you the tools, but then if you need additional guidance, we do it with others. So we might have a cohort of people that we take through a program, and we have check-in sessions or classroom sessions where we help and guide you through our educational content. Or we do it together in a way where we might help implement it, but in the process, we're teaching you what we're doing and teaching you why we're doing it. And then really at the end, we're giving you a handbook, or we're handing over something that you can continue to implement within your business, or we're training your staff to be able to do that for you as well. So that's really, what we offer, or we might do it with other organisations on their behalf. So we might work with a local government to create a program specific to their community, their business community, or specific to a particular challenge, like the Open Innovation Competition for the City of Melbourne will help people create a great pitch, for instance. So we either give you the tools so that you can learn, and then when you're ready, you might want to do it with others and get us to check in, or we can do it together where we're teaching you and doing some of those tasks for you to get you set up for success in the future.
Yeah, no, I think it's really good because people start at different with different skill levels based on what their past experience is, and so some people are here and some people are here, and you have to be able to match where they are. So, based on all of the businesses that you've worked with, all the entrepreneurs that you've worked with, what would you say is the most common missing skill that people have when it comes to marketing?
Yeah, no, I actually don't think it's a skill. I think it's confidence. So, so in the most part, I have this belief that you can teach anyone everything. I was just talking to Trudy before about, organically growing your team and getting the right people and the right culture, and then teaching them skill. I actually believe you can teach anyone anything. I think that, even creativity can be taught. There's a process, there's a formula, you can teach people things. So, so I think that it's never a lack of skills necessarily, it's always a lack of confidence. And because, if you're confident, you'll have a go at something. You'll say, oh, I'll put something on Facebook and see how it goes. So I think it's a lack of confidence. And one of the things that we really focus on, is self-efficacy, is the confidence to action what you've learned. And so really our education is around self-efficacy, is about instilling in the entrepreneur the confidence to action what they've learned. And I think that's probably the most important thing for any business person, any entrepreneur, is having that confidence to action it. If you put a gun to my head and said there was one skill that you had to have, I'd say it was your ability to be data driven, to use data to inform the process.
Do you want to talk about that just a little bit more?
Yeah, sure. So we live in a world, back in the day, if you were in the marketing department, it's like the arts and craft department. You could barely justify your existence. How many people looked at a billboard? I don't know. But now we live in a world where we have access to a richness of data. We understand how many people are looking at something online. We understand who's looking at it, what their interests are. We understand what actions are, how many people open my email, what they looked at in my email, how many people click through. And so whilst again data can be quite overwhelming because there's so much of it, really we focus on being having an objective. What is the one thing that you want to achieve, or what are your goals, or how can we measure any activity that we do? So for instance, if you were a retail business and you wanted to sell 100 dresses, you'd say, okay, I want to sell 100 dresses in a year. All of the data that you look at relates back to that goal. So it could be that you know that 100 people look at your website, and of those 100 people, 10 people purchase a dress. Okay, if I need to increase the number of people that purchase dresses, I need to increase the number of visitors to my website. How do I do that? I'll create a hypothesis like I did at science in school, and then I test it. I'll go, okay, well, I'll write a blog, or I'll do some social posts, and then I'm looking at the data to see whether that social post drove that amount of people to the website and converted that people. And so I'm looking at that data journey to understand whether I'm reaching my goal. I hope with data it can get quite complex, but really simply it's just about measuring the impact of your activities to ensure that what you're doing is helping you reach your goal or vision for your business.
Yeah, no, that's so true, because we are data driven as well, as you very well know, and we pay a lot of attention to the data, and we do design our tools and things to make sure that we have the data that we need. But you can still, as human beings, we can still make assumptions, and for us, having that data helps us, not follow those assumptions. I'm going to give you a quick example because it just happened to me just this week, and that I was having a conversation with my team, basically saying, because we're running an online business liftoff program, we teach people how to start an online business, find an idea, get started, get your website in place, and get ready to grow. And so that's the main program that we have. And we've put a lot of people through the program now, and we're in the process of going through the final recruiting for the very last group. Pardon me, that's going to be starting up soon. And I was going, I don't think we should be paying attention to these people coming through as leads because they're not completing. They tend to have a higher dropout rate, because we do have a dropout rate. Life happens, people have to stop and attend to other things. And then I thought, well, hang on, wait a minute, I better check the data. So I went back to my team and said, could you answer these couple of questions? And they came back to me with the answers. And the group of people that I thought had the highest dropout rate actually had the highest completion rate. And I had it completely backwards because I had assumed without going back and checking the data. And so we were able to obviously turn that around very quickly. So it's such a valuable thing having that data, because it stops you making silly mistakes.
Yeah, it does. And it's so easy to assume. And as I say, back in the day, you had to make assumptions, because unless you spoke to a customer on the telephone, which you used to do regularly, but there was no way to actually see this and see instantly. And I think, having that enables you to really make those strategic decisions. Yeah, it's really, really useful.
So do you find that a lot of the people that you work with are actually afraid of numbers?
Oh, I think it depends. So here's an interesting point for you, Trudy. Women business owners are less likely to hand something over to someone else and more likely to want to understand it themselves than male. The male counterpart are more likely to hire a bookkeeper or an accountant or an agency and get them to do it for them, whereas women are more likely to want to know more about it and do it themselves. I think you and I both know how
Yes.
that works in our own business as well. But I don't think it's necessarily the numbers themselves. I think, again, it's this, demystifying what does a bounce rate mean, or what does this mean. Once there's that understanding, they're less scary. Like code, code can look scary, but once you understand, what it actually is, then it's not as scary as what you first said. So it really comes down to building that understanding to help build that confidence. And then also where to find it. And because there's so much data and so much data everywhere, it can be hard to then really focus on what's important to you. But by setting those goals about what's important to you and your business, you can say, okay, these are the metrics, these are the numbers that I need to look for, and I'll ignore the rest for the time being, and I'll just look for these. And that makes it a lot more manageable for people.
Yeah, for sure. So just out of sheer curiosity, if you were talking to somebody who had come to you to say, where do we start? We need some help. Where do we start? What and you found out that they didn't really know the numbers picture for their business very well. Where would you tell them to start? Where might they start?
Well, I suppose it depends on their business. Is it digitally focused? For instance, I know a lot of your audience might be, online businesses. So if they haven't got Google Analytics, on their website, then that's the first thing that you should do. However, once that's set up, again, you go into Google Analytics, like, oh, there's all these things. What do they all mean? But the same with Facebook or social channels. There's a lot of data insights there. I would start by reassessing what it is that I want to do as a business. So rather than looking at the data and the data sources, make sure all your data is set up so you can collect it. But then, okay, what is it that I want to achieve? And really just pinpoint those metrics that are going to give you that indication of whether you're moving closer towards your goal, and then seek those numbers out, and only seek those numbers, because it can be really easy to get overwhelmed by all of them. And once you get to a position where you know what they all mean, you do get a bit obsessed with data, and you have your analytics app on your phone and you look at it every day. but at the start, when you're just starting out, just figure out what numbers are going to mean the most to you and just look for those.
Yeah, for sure. Because I'm just thinking about, for us, we have several numbers that we track, and I'm always doing reading, I'm always doing research and finding out how we can do things better and things like that. And basically been going through this book called Traction by a guy named Wickman. It's a really great. You've got it. Oh, it's great. It's fantastic. It really is a great book. And basically he says you need to make sure that everybody in your business has one number that they're responsible for. And so we have numbers for the organization, but everybody in the team has a number that they're responsible for. And that's kind of interesting. And so for me, my most important overall number is how many people complete the core components of our course so that they can then go and grow their business. And to me, that's important. What about for you? What about for Marketing Entourage?
Confidence. So we always survey at the start, how confident are you in applying marketing? Always at the end. So we look, have we been able to increase the confidence? Because we believe if the confidence is increased, then the impact that we've had will be long term. So yeah.
And that's an interesting one, because we care about confidence as well, but we find it's really quite subjective to measure. How do you go about measuring confidence?
Yeah, it is really, isn't it? Because again, it's interesting, the skew, and you can tell that we look at the data, but the male participants generally tend to be more confident than the female participants. So it is subjective, but what we're looking for is a shift, basically. Has it shifted from a smaller number to a larger number? So regardless of what that number is, we just want to ensure that the dial has shifted. So I think, there's other metrics that are important, like completion rates, but I think because of the do it yourself, do it with others, and do it together, that's the one metric that we know as a business that has meant that we're reaching our vision, we're creating impact, we're building capability for the people that we serve.
Yeah, no, I think that's really, really important. Actually, that raises another curious question. One of the things for our people, who we help get their business set up, and they get to the place where it is set up and they're really quite confident in it, is that when they're first starting out, one of the biggest barriers is that they feel very unconfident, if that's even a word. They have very little confidence in their knowledge and understanding of technology. Do you find that that's the same with the people you work with?
Yeah, definitely. And again, I think because there's so much choice, and if you look at the MarTech world and how that's evolved, even over the last 3 years, let alone the last 5 or 10 years, there's just so much choice. And as humans, we don't deal very well with a lot of choice. And there's so much that you can do, and getting the right ones. And I think the other concern is always like, or well, which one will work for this, and will that talk to this system, and will I have to unravel it when I grow, and that leads to a bit of I suppose decision fatigue, and that can lead to a bit of a lack of confidence basically in what to choose. And I think because there's so much out there, and it's hard to do the research because there's so many different solutions. So you'd look for guidance. And again, I think because a lot of the technology solutions now are really quite intuitive, and if you've got an iPhone, for instance, once you get on some of these platforms, you can kind of figure your way around. If you can't, then the UX designers aren't doing a very good job for the technology applications. But I think once you get used to them, then then your confidence builds. But again, it's like anything new, it can be scary for the first time, and so it's just a matter of sort of getting out there and maybe choosing those platforms that are simplified, that don't have all the bells and whistles, and and definitely when it comes to CRM systems or email marketing or marketing automation, there are technology solutions for absolute beginners that will just help you make sure you send an email to someone when they request information at 2 o'clock in the morning. And that's what you want to do. You just want to make sure that you're available to your customers. So it's about choosing the solution right for you. And I think maybe it's looking to guidance from people like yourself, Trudy, or education that helps you to cut away from all of the noise of the technology solutions out there and say, look, just start out with a really simple email provider like this. Don't worry about all the other things, as yet, and just get started. And I think getting started and having a bit of education around how it works and what it's going to do will help. So building that understanding. And I think a lot of the technology providers have their own resources when it comes to education. So it's useful to look at those, but as I say, then useful to seek out experts such as yourself, I know, on the technology side, that can sort of guide people in the right way.
Yeah, I'm smiling a little bit because you wouldn't even know this, but I just did a podcast episode that's going to be released shortly about how to choose the 5 questions you need to ask to choose your email service provider. And we've also created a diagnostic tool that then puts those questions into a format where you can answer the questions online and it'll pop out a result for you. Because the confusing thing is, even for something as simple as email service providers, is that there's a lot of them. They all offer pretty much the same thing, but as you said, there are some that are better for beginners and there's some that are better for more advanced people. And it's, if you don't know what you don't know what questions to ask and what research to do. And they do all have really good, almost all of them have really good help in tutorials and modules and things like that. But if you don't know what to ask, that's not a help at all. So that's going to be coming out shortly. And so we've got this tool that's ready so people can go online, answer a few questions, and it'll spit out an answer for them about the best one, and then gives them some choices as well.
We could have planned it just so people know as well that I go through this situation equally. There's so many solutions, even for our stage of the journey, and I'm a bit of a tech nerd, and so I'm like, oh, look at this shiny new technology thing. Oh, could we implement that? So it doesn't go away.
No, it definitely doesn't, because we do the same thing. When we're looking for software platforms that are going to help us achieve the next level in our business, you do have to go through this whole process of asking questions, talking to people who are using something, trying to figure out what we want to do with it, making sure we have a checklist that you could go through, and does it do this, does it do that, does it do that? And so it's a really important thing. But it's like everything. If you put the time into researching it and do the best you can with researching it and trying to understand it, you're going to come away more knowledgeable, so that when somebody does give you some advice, you're going to be able to know whether they actually know what they're talking about or not.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I think that's really important. So it's kind of interesting. So we've talked a little bit about data and how important that is, and how important it is to develop the confidence to be able to take steps forward. What other tips could you give our listeners in terms of what kind of marketing skills do they need to have as they work hard to grow their business?
Well, I think, strategy, understanding who you are, why you're, excuse me, doing what you're doing, what your vision is, what your goals are, what makes you different. So what makes you unique and who your target customers are. I think that's pretty standard for your strategy. And I'm sure you talk about this as well, Trudy, because we both have very similar values. And I think then it depends what stage you're in. So, very early stage, you've kind of got to find customers as quickly as possible. And getting those customers will then help you fuel your next sort of growth. We talk, and so there's two aspects to this. There's the, what are my short-term wins or my short-term return on investment? Where can I find customers now? While I'm making sure, I'm losing my voice, while I'm making sure that my bucket, when I'm bringing those customers in, doesn't have any holes in. So we kind of have to do that in parallel. And often, the focus for many is, okay, I need customers, and they bring them in and there's holes all over the bucket and they come in and they lose them. What I mean by that is that, you bring them to your website, but you have a really long form and people don't want to fill it in, so you lose them there. Or there's like a 5-step process to purchasing your product, so you lose them in that respect. Or you don't have the right information for them to make a decision on whether to purchase from you, or you don't have social proof. So you kind of need to ensure that all along that journey, that customer's journey, that you have the right information and the right experience for them, so that when you do those activities that are going to bring the customer to that funnel, that you keep them, that you lessen the amount of customers that you lose, so that you're getting maximum return on your investment, whether that's monetary or whether that's time. And especially important for those starting out is you need that maximum impact for whatever activity you do. You need to get the maximum impact, because your time and your resources generally tend to be pretty low. So those two things are working in tandem. What can I do that's going to get me customers quickly? Often one of the first things that we look to do is actually look at partnerships. Who out there has a similar sort of target audience to you that you can partner with, where you get access to their audience and they get access to your audience if you have one, or the partnership is about building your audience, and you can work together, whether that's a competition on Instagram. And I've definitely seen an increase in those over the last few months, whether it's a competition, you're giving away something for free, or whether you're contributing ideas for someone else's blog. People need content. So there's things that you can do that don't necessarily have to cost money. If the intent for your product or service is high, the search is high, then potentially you could look to Google Ads or paid search. That might be something that you could do. But I would suggest only doing that if the intent is really high. People are actively searching for what you provide, because then you've got a chance of getting in front of them. Without that, you can, Google Ads can be a bit of a rabbit hole, and it can increase significantly. You can learn a lot from what people search, but for beginners, I'd steer away from that just to start with. And then the other thing is, if it is that you already have some customers, so you've got some traction, is to think about them. It's actually often cheaper to market to existing customers than it is trying to get new ones. So where can you provide added value to those customers? Where can they purchase from you again, or how can you get them to refer you to others, or how can you make sure that they advocate for your business?
Yeah, no, I think that's really important. And sort of, we've talked a little bit about email lists and things like that, and we talk, audience, who's your audience, and how do you grow your audience, and people, I think it's been interesting. I'm just reflecting a minute on a conversation that I had not that long ago, where somebody asks how many people we had on our email list, and when I told her, she said, oh, basically, she felt, I won't exactly say what she said, but she felt it was small compared to what she was expecting. And she was kind of going, do as I say, not as I do, sort of a mentality. And I went, No, 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 no. For the audience that you're working with, you want to make sure that the people that you're talking to are the right people, not just numbers for the sake of numbers. So what kind of things could you suggest in terms of when you're reaching out to people, how do you make sure that the people that come in and join your email list or your audience are the right ones?
Yeah, it's a really good point. And we talk about that, the sort of vanity metrics. I'd rather have an email list of 100 where each of them bought than an email list of 100,000 where I only got sort of a 0.5% conversion rate. So it's really about how you engage them. And it's all down to the messaging and understanding the value you provide. And the only way to do that is actually to understand who your customers are. So we've often recommended, if you're just starting out, to try and identify, first of all, your value. What makes you valuable in the market? What are your differentiators against an alternative? It might not be a competitor necessarily. It could just be an alternative to what you're providing. What are those strengths or values? And then what kind of person actually seeks that value out? And then if it is that you don't know any people like that, could you do a focus group? And you can use one of the, freelance, like Upwork or Freelancer, to try and actually, source people that match a sort of description who would value these things, and then, talk to them, have a focus group. It's not about selling your product or idea or service. It's about just understanding them as people and understanding what's important to them and what their goals are and what their challenges are. And the key here really is to sort of delve into them to a certain degree, that when you're creating your messaging on your website or in your email, that you're talking their language, you're talking about what their needs are and how you're going to help overcome them or enhance their life in some way, so it resonates with them. And so then you're starting to attract the people that it will resonate with. And the more focused you can be on that value and those particular people, and the more niche you can be, the better, especially when you're first starting out. Because if you try and market to everyone, you market to no one. Be niche, think about the psychographics as well as the demographics, what makes these people tick, and talk to them. Use the language that you've got from the focus groups. We often, for our clients, look at their survey data and use the language that the customers have used in the language, in the messaging, so that we're replicating how they might talk. And so then you're starting to probably resonate with the people that makes sense to. I think about, and maybe this is a good idea for those that just starting out too, think about the brands or the companies that you really like, and what is it that you like about them, and look at their emails to you and look at the language that they use, and look at what is it that appeals, or it's making you feel connected. And as humans, that's what we're looking for, that connection, and we'll stay loyal to people where we feel connected. So that's what we're trying to do with our messaging, is we're trying to connect with people that have similar values, that value us for what we do, that love us for what we do, and so that they'll feel like, oh yeah, I'm in the right place. I'm going to buy from these people. I like this person. I like what they're about. They get me. That kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, there's just that whole know, like, and trust factor.
Yeah.
And there's the usual, or I guess the wisdom, the known folk wisdom, I guess, around the number of touch points that people have to experience before they get to that point where they do know, like, and trust.
Yeah, 7 apparently. So
apparently,
yeah.
But that's one of the things that's interesting about data is that it's not always 7.
Yeah, and it's not always linear as well, which is interesting. That sort of attrition. Yeah, it's really, yeah, and watching that evolve, and as humans, we don't take a sort of linear approach necessarily to our journey. And you have some people that are impulsive buyers, and you have people that are more considered, and so their journeys are quite different. So yeah, understanding the different types of buyer, I think that's been important for this time as well, actually, Trudy, is is knowing the change in buyer behavior because of a global pandemic. You know, you have got people that are more reserved, that are, you know, waiting to see what's going to happen. The people that are, yeah, just continue as normal, or, you know, so actually understanding that buyer behavior is actually quite important too.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it by definition, it means you do have to dig more deeply and do a little bit more research, but it's effort that pays off hugely. So,
Yeah, and the more you know your customers, the more you can develop a product or service that creates value for them, the more customers you'll get. You know, it's you know, being customer centered, especially in this sort of consumer driven world, is, I think, is the only way for businesses to succeed into the future.